All right. Hey, how's everybody doing? We have a familiar face today. So we've been doing these. I've just started doing these streams of these interrogations, and both Dixon and myself. Would you say it's fair to say that you also like true crime in the same way that I do?
Yes, sexually.
That is exactly how I like it.
That was such a weird way to put it. No, I can't speak to. I should have been a little less, but I can't speak to exactly how you like it. But yeah, no, I do. I watch my forensic files. I watch my Unsolved Mysteries is where it all began for me.
Yeah.
Disappeared, which runs on the IE channel. For those in the States, I don't know if it has an equivalent over there on these cable subscriptions. ID. I said ID.
Yeah, that's what we watch here.
So yeah, I would say I can easily get drawn into a good mystery.
So just to get everyone caught up, so we're talking about the Michael Dunn interrogation. So we've watched the interrogation, and for anybody who's not familiar with it, up to now, what's happened? He's shot and killed somebody. He's driven off, hasn't called the cops. In a 24-hour period, had pizza and made his way home casually. And in that period, the police have arrested him. He's come in. His view is initially they had a shotgun and they were raising that shotgun to kill him. And he shoots and kills one of the passengers in the back, shoots the car driving away. In his interrogation, learns that there's no gun or even a stick or water gun or anything to that effect. And he just he's now sort of dumbfounded because he's realized that he is trying to convey, I guess, personal incredulity because he was defending himself and there was no bystander, no witness, no evidence to back it up. And he's now in a situation where it's his story with no evidence, preventing him from losing his freedom for the rest of his life. So what I thought we would do today is I thought we would then listen to the I guess testimony of his partner, who was in the shop, came running out when I guess she heard the gunfire and saw everything. I guess everything she saw that happened, I think is going to be a more interesting witness testimony. And Dix, I think you're pretty up to speed on everything up to this point as well.
I believe I understand the basics of what went on to this day. Yes, I do.
Yeah. You sound lovely, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry about the microphone issue earlier.
Okay.
Hopefully, it obscured my terrible joke. Going on.
No, it was an incredible joke. So let's hit play and then let's watch. And Dixon, if there's anything you want to just start shouting, and I'll pause it.
Much as can be expected. Yeah. Okay. Basically, we just wanted to kind of talk about what we talked about the first time we talked to you. Just kind of go over, your experiences, what you saw, what you heard that night. Just kind of maybe probably a few questions we want to clarify that at the time we didn't know to maybe ask at the time, and just kind of clarify some things. You and Mike lived together in Satellite Beach, correct? Okay.
How long have y'all lived together?
We've been living together probably about 2.5 years of the 3.5 years we've been together.
So you've been together 3.5.
Yeah.
Together 2.5. Do you have any kids in?
Sorry about that. I'm having some technical difficulties here. I'm on a different computer.
Common or anything like that? Okay. And the plan was to go up on Thursday.
We went up on Thursday evening after Thanksgiving dinner with my son, and we stayed the night there Thursday evening, and then went to the wedding on Friday.
Okay, so you stayed at the hotel, the same one you stayed at all week, the Sheraton.
That's correct.
Okay.
So Dixon, you're understanding that they were leaving the wedding, weren't they? When the
shooting occurred, they'd already left.
So this was they literally had left the wedding to go, and I think actually they even had their new puppy at the B&B they were staying.
Yeah, they as I recall, part of the story was that they left the wedding early so they said, to walk the dog. Whether or not that was the dog became a convenient excuse to leave a wedding early that they were kind of done with, or whether that was a legitimate thing.
It's not a bad idea, actually, to be fair.
Yeah, I've definitely left a reception or two early on weaker excuses than that one. So
You don't have to worry about all that.
Right.
and then we were going to St. Augustine on Saturday.
Right.
So I jumped it ahead a little bit here. I just
Where
want to get to the point where they were.
We had a place reserved at the Casablanca Inn. It's,
Jumping it ahead just a little bit.
Time do you
I
think?
guess right around maybe.
That's where you went with that.
Yeah.
Okay. And Mike had a few drinks there.
He did too.
How many do you think, Mike?
I don't think he had more than 3. If he had 4, that would be more than I.
So he
I
had
think he would
he had
have.
rum and
Okay.
And
cokes
they
as well.
weren't big drinks, but
So
he was-
Yeah, I would pause right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Listen, when you're out with your wife, I don't know. I'm sitting here thinking, like, is she keeping count of the number of drinks that you've had?
No, and I think she had something like 5 or 6. I don't know if she's
Well,
going to
she
say.
said 2 or 3, I think, in the interview.
Well,
the piece I
I'm talking
saw.
about her. She,
No,
think
I
she
know.
had,
I'm saying, like, last night I watched some to prep for this here today. I saw a piece of this interview where I believe that she claimed she had 2 or 3 to his 3 or 4. But my point here is, yeah, they're both drinking. My guess is that, basically these sound like people who, if she says 3 or 4, I'll take that to mean 5 or 6. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's
I think they were both, because even 3 or 4 rum and cokes, that's too much to drive, really. Weird. In Britain, it's too much. In America, I think once you get 5, that's it. That's kind of the way I've seen it since I moved over here.
That's interesting. I would think
Did
that
it with a
America.
toast also?
Yeah.
Like a champagne toast
Yes,
or anything
there
like
was
that?
champagne
Okay.
toast.
And a
But
champagne
I don't
toast.
think he drank his. He doesn't like champagne.
Okay. Did does Mike does he drink normally? I mean, is it normal just to drink? Has a few drinks at dinner? Or
Yeah.
not one. It's not an unusual.
So just a quick one in the interrogation, just to remind everybody, when he was 16, he was arrested for DUI. And I'm willing to give him some latitude for that because we were all stupid at one point. But he also said he had been arrested for 5 days due to I forget what it was. I think he tried to cross the border, and because he said he had the DUI when he was 16, he got arrested, and there was some issue with the paperwork. I'm sure the story checks out, but at the same time, there's a bit of a history there.
Well, I would add here, it sounds to me like the cops are onto this, meaning that they're starting to see that 3 or 4 means, or 5 or 6. It means the champagne. It means, I think in another piece of the interview, she talks about how they also each had a beer. Yeah. So, I mean, like, it's starting to roll up how much they had. Yeah. And I think what they're getting towards is, one reason that they didn't call the police right away is if they had, among other things, not that it's silly to compare the one to the other on one level, but drunk people don't think clearly. They were exposing themselves to the possibility of a DUI charge beyond everything else.
Yeah, I think he would happily trade the DUI charge for murder. But
my guess is initially he didn't know he'd killed the kid. You know what I mean?
I wondered if that's why, and that's a really good point, because they pulled off and they called nobody, and he shot at the door. And I think when I messaged you, I said he'd watch Lethal Weapon too often, because whenever you watch these cop shows from the 80s, you shoot at the side of a car and you see the cops hiding behind the door, and no bullets ever go through. And right. I think he shot at the door thinking I'm just scaring him, and then realized I'm half lit.
That's what you meant.
Yeah, and he's thinking I'm half cut. I need to get out of here because they're going to be asking why I fired a gun, and they're if I go home and I sleep it off, at least they can come back to me and say, yeah, you shot at this kid's car, but you're not drunk at that stage. So
right. That's what I'm starting to sense here, that he's trying to duck the DUI. The only thing is, legally, it probably helps his cause, although he's not thinking about this, if he's drunk at the time he fires these shots rather than sober, because one speaks to intent and the other, you can hide. Like, inebriation becomes its own bizarre legal defense for a certain degree of misbehavior.
I didn't know, and that's something I'd be interested if anybody who watches this on record, if anybody's watching this, knows whether you can, I guess, you can fall back a bit on being drunk to sort of save your conscious mind from making poor decisions.
Sure, it's not going to be the difference between no jail time and jail time. I want to be clear, but it might be the difference between murder in the first degree life in prison versus murder in the second.
Thing for him to drink. Okay. Does he ever drink to excess?
Oh, yeah.
He does? Okay. That day, was he feeling good? How much, could you tell the alcohol was having an effect on him at all?
No, but he was in very good spirits because of what had happened at the wedding.
His son got married, yeah.
Okay, so he's feeling good.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
What a
Because
fucking
of the
tool
situation
bag.
of what occurred.
Right.
But you didn't know you weren't concerned getting in a car with him.
Absolutely not.
Not to make a long point here, not to belabor it, but what really about this case, what really sort of sits in my mind is he went from what is, when you go to a wedding, like your son's wedding, this is one of the greatest days. These are those days that you earmark in your life as the important parts that I remember when I'm on my deathbed. And he leaves this important day and decides it's time to shoot bullets in the side of a car. I just can't get my head around it. It's incredibly just ridiculous, the whole thing. To go from son's wedding, having a lovely drink, having a puppy, to being in prison for the rest of your life. It's crazy.
Hallmarks of a controlling personality. Everything about the day has to service him in the end. Whether it's the fact that his son is getting married, that's about him. That he's, doing this, that, or the other, it's about him. And then when these kids with their music are disturbing his day, it's about him, and they're doing it to him.
That's really good observation. Really good.
So you guys leave the wedding, and driving back, you decide to stop at the gas station because you want to get a bottle of wine and chips.
That's correct.
Correct. Okay. So you guys pull in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now,
by the way, you should get chocolate or something sweet with a bottle of wine, not potato chips. I don't, maybe if you get like beer, yeah, that's the first problem right there. That's where it all started going
I'm
wrong.
not a big thing. My adult experience, even my young adult experience with hangover, tells me you don't mix alcohol and sweets. That is a prescription for death. If I were having wine, I'd want some cheese and crackers.
Yeah, not potato chips, but I guess they're stopping at the gas station, so beggars can't be choosers.
Also, the fact that they are stopping and getting wine tells you that this is a party that they're going to keep right on rolling.
Yeah,
with. You know what I mean? Like they're
going to be bumping uglies.
They're having a good time.
That's right.
When he pulls in next to the red SUV. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It was already there.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. And was the music playing?
Yes.
Okay. The music's playing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming it's the bass music playing. And does Mike make comment about the fact about the music playing? What did he say?
He said, "Oh, I hate that thug music."
Okay. And that's he's expressed that concern in the past.
Yes.
It annoys him to hear that music.
And,
Can we stop right there?
Yeah.
Because
it's a good point.
Just to be clear, not that we're going to belabor the point here or state the obvious, but there's your code word. You know what I mean? That's what's going through his head. We know, like we could replace the word thug with any one number of a colorful variety of terms that were undoubtedly on his mind.
That is. Would you call that was it the terminology? Dog whistle? Is that what it is?
Dog whistle. Yeah. I think the poker player. I think you call that a tell.
It is. Well, yeah, it is a tell. It's not a tell that you're going to shoot anybody, but it is definitely a tell.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay. But you said it would be out of character for him, if I remember correctly the first time, it would be out of character for him for you to know him to actually say something to Sam Side.
Exactly.
He would normally just kind of deal with it and be like, "Oh, I can't wait till the lick and pull off."
Yeah.
So I'm getting better at jumping out to it.
No, and I'm just going to add because as I'm sitting here thinking about why is the thug, in case anybody's listening to this going, well, what's to tell about it? I'll tell you what's to tell about it. My wife, for example, also has a very, I would say, passionate hatred of bass in music. Some people, I think the vibration of that bass just bothers them more than others because she doesn't talk about how loud it is. She talks about how she feels it in her breastbone. But whenever she speaks of it, she'll be on a tear of rage, even like screaming and carrying on about how somebody's got to turn that music down. It's blah, 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 blah. But it's always about the bass. It's the music. It's never the thug music.
Yeah.
It's never the thug this. That's
and that's the code right there.
Yeah.
Okay. When y'all pull up, is he originally going to get out? Does he start to get out of the car at all? Like he's going to go in with you?
I don't think so because I asked him. No, did I ask him? No, I asked him if he. Let me think.
Take a minute.
Okay. No, I asked him if he wanted anything,
Mm-hmm.
and he said no.
Okay.
And then he got his wallet and gave me.
Okay. So the plan the whole time was to have you just run in and.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really like a plan.
Okay.
You know, sometimes he'll get out with me, but I was just going in for wine, so there was really no reason for him to go in with me.
Could you tell when he pulled in? Could you tell were the vehicles on his side? Were they pretty close? That you didn't make notice of how close he parked to him? Fair enough.
So I don't
know. Well, go ahead. You go first.
Yeah, I just want to jump in on here because there was one of the points I made in the last stream. They interviewed somebody else who'd pulled in just beforehand, and he was one of the witnesses. And they had said, "Oh, where did you park?" He said, "I parked in the back." And they said, "Well, why didn't you park up front? There were spaces up front because the Durango that was shot and where Michael Dunn pulled up were in those front spaces." And he said, "I heard the music, and it was really loud, and I just didn't want to be anywhere near that."
Yeah.
So I would be curious, and this is something I don't know, if there was like, let's say 4 open spaces and he purposely, I would wager a guess if there was multiple open spaces, he would have chosen that, whether that be subconsciously or rather directly, to take that space.
I think you and I were on the same wavelength. That's what I was going to, I think it's pretty obvious that that's where the police officer's mind is here.
Yeah.
Is on that question of, this is baiting the confrontation. You could park anywhere. Yeah. If you don't want to hear it, you can move further away. That's not
a great point. And that's even adding another layer to what I was saying, because he hates that music, yet he parked as close as he could to it, and there was other people parked in other places. And I think there's a level of entitlement. I can understand him being annoyed about that. I get that, fine. But it's just he was doing everything he could to get into a confrontation right from the get-go.
Precisely, the guy thinks he's Charles Bronson.
A really shit Charles Bronson, yes.
Yes.
He's seen falling. Was it Falling Down with Kurt? What's his name? The guy who just got fed up wearing the shirt and tie. Kirk Douglas.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I remember an episode of All Things Jake and the Fat Man. Yes. My mom, I guess, would occasionally watch that show. And the only one the only single episode I remember was a plot that kind of mirrors this. You had a guy who, for whatever reason, I think in the episode, the idea was that his wife had been assaulted and he was present for it, but failed to stop it. And so she made, he felt that she was questioning his manhood kind of thing. And so he decided to he becomes like this sort of like serial avenger. But what he does is he goes into, quote unquote, dangerous neighborhoods, and flaunts himself in ways meant to draw the confrontation so that he can then have the excuse to pull the piece and whatever. I mean, so it was it was an intentional act. I mean, this is even more egregious than that, because the guy, there's no prompting here other than he's spoiling for a fight. He's had a few and he's spoiling for a fight.
Yeah.
You go inside at that point, and you just find your chips, find the wine you're looking for. Mm-hmm. You go up to the counter to pay. And the first
the things you have to admit
that something out of the norm is hearing the sounds of the gunshots, which everybody's kind of...
I really wish he had bought like condoms or something as well. They
would confused at first.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't hear any argument. Okay. You didn't hear any kind of verbal confrontation.
Oh, that's a great question.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is a great question from that officer, because she thinks he's just answering no, yeah. But what that sets up is that he had there's no way he can claim he was threatened.
Yeah. Well, there is. Keep in mind, they've asked and they have spoken to multiple people who did say there was, yelling back and forth.
Oh, okay.
But I think they are just confirming what her understanding of the situation is and whether she would have predilection towards saying one thing or another. So I think it does give them a bit of information in asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
You hear the gunshots go off at first, and you kind of just didn't really know what was...
No, I asked the cashier, what was that?
Okay.
And she said, I don't know.
Okay. And then there's another volley of shots. At that point, kind of, what do you see and what do you...
Well, I believe at that time I was handing her my money, and the sounds happened again, and that's when because there's a window there, that's when she said, that guy's got a gun. And I turned around, and all I could see was Michael.
Right.
And his car door was open,
Mm-hmm.
and he was kind of like facing out the car door.
Okay. Was he
Yeah.
still? Did it look like he's still seated in the car?
Yes.
Okay, but he had like, if I'm in a seat, he kind of opens the door up and kind of spins out so you can see his body out. Like, did it look like his upper body was leaning out, or how much of him could you see? That's what I'm trying to play out.
It looked like he was like maybe, all right, so
You
this
could
is
see-
it.
yeah.
It was like he was like this.
Kind of put a leg out.
He's
kinda-
got to be.
Yeah. Now I don't know if his leg is out. I couldn't see that.
This question has got to be about they're trying to establish whether or not she could see whether he had a gun at that point, right? Because the cashier said that guy has a gun, and now he's asking questions about specifically where was Michael's body in reference to you. I'm just thinking that these questions are meant to tell them whether or not she could see, like, how quickly did she know that her fiance was responsible?
I think, well, it's funny, actually. My favorite part in the interrogation beforehand, just to sort of jump on top of that, Michael Dunn was saying, sort of reconveying her perspective. And his story was, she heard the shots, or somebody heard the shots. She turned around and saw it was me and said, it's okay. After she saw it was me, as if like, don't worry, that's a white guy shooting. Everything's okay. I know this guy who's filling in bullets everywhere. And I just found it funny that it was, oh, okay, because she said it was me, then everybody in the store would be like, that makes perfect sense. And to me, that was sort of another little mini dog whistle about his views on race and how a white guy shooting would be perceived.
Yeah, I mean, she also, again, I've seen portions of this interview prior to this, and I believe she says something about the idea that she gets into the car not really knowing what has happened later in the interview, and that eventually he tells her, oh, well, I shot at the car.
Yeah.
So in other words, later she's going to claim, or the implication of that is that before getting it, that he basically tells her, get in the car. And she's like, and then he's like, get in the car. And, she just gets in without thinking because, she's thinking, I don't know what's going on, but he sounds very hepped up, urgent. I better just comply. As opposed, because it all goes to a question of her culpability. Like, to what degree did she know before is she aiding and abetting a getaway at this point? Is she participating in a getaway, or is she just as confused as anybody else, doesn't really know quite what's going on? I think that's what they're getting at.
Yeah, this may be what the questioning's about. And I think from their perspective, and I'm really curious to hear what which good point you raised, because it's really making me hyper focus now on what she's about to say as far as what she has seen then.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
That's the way it looked to me.
It appeared to you that to be in the position he was in probably puts a leg out. Okay. So what is the conversation in the store at that time?
Well, so
is he holding a gun, by the way?
Walking towards the door.
Yeah.
And the cashier said, again, he has a gun.
Yeah, he's holding his gun. That's
I wouldn't be too thrilled with that if I were her.
No.
All right.
I didn't know if she was talking about Michael,
Right?
Because I didn't see a gun.
Okay.
But
I think that's fair, because if he's turning around shooting, I don't think you would think, given he hasn't used his gun from the glove box in however many years it's been in there, she sees him turning around and hears gunfire. For all she knows, he's ducking down.
Right. Well, that's if she can't see it, then it's fair. You know what I mean? I think that's what he's trying to establish is where was she? Where was he? Can she see it? Can't she? Is it plausible? Because if she doesn't see it, I don't think anybody would necessarily naturally assume that their non-military, non-police officer husband has drawn his weapon.
Yeah.
I
think all of this too
fiance.
I think, let's say they do establish, or they were to have established, which they haven't. We know what's happened in the case, but they were to establish she's got some culpability in the getaway. I think part of that is twofold. One of which, if she's guilty of a crime, then she needs to be put on trial for that. But at the same time, it just adds to the bag of credit that they can pull on when they need to get either a confession or they need to get something sort of moved through the courts.
Right. Well, I mean, understand that when we're talking, we're kind of assuming that what she's saying is the truth. I'm sure part of it is that the police officers are sitting there trying to evaluate her story.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair.
I kind of told her it's okay. It's Michael.
Right.
You know,
She did
so-
say that. It's okay. It's Michael, but it makes sense now because from his perspective, I think he said she saw me shooting or something to that effect. I could be fucking this up.
Right.
But from there, are you getting me okay, by the way? I had a
Oh, I can hear you.
connection is good. Okay. So the the thing from there, I guess from her perspective, she genuinely didn't think Michael was shooting, I guess. And she's like, don't worry, it's just Michael, i.e. he's not
Right.
shooting. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't be worried.
Right.
Everything's fine. It's Michael out
Right.
there. And so I opened the door and he said, get in the car. And I don't know if I said what or if I said anything or if I just hesitated. And he said, get in the car. But he was, you know, he just had that sound in his voice, you know, of urgency. Yeah.
And I think from her perspective, it would be so confusing and foreign and
Sure.
she's sort of, the adrenaline's pumping, there was gunfire, her partner's telling her we need to get out of here. I think even if I was in that position and I was hanging out with this dude, I'd be like, yeah, let's get out of here.
I'm not quick on my feet. And so I can sympathize with her. Like
Yeah.
I can easily see myself in that situation going like, you know, we all wish we were, you know,
Yeah.
Bruce Willis in an action movie, but this I am not, you know.
All it needs is for him to say, put this in your handbag. We're going. Hold this for
And
me.
so I got in the car.
You never saw him with the gun when you looked outside?
No. I did not see a gun in
Yeah,
it.
there's the question.
But you know he has one.
Yes, I do
Okay.
know. He
All right.
said that gun
All right. He needs to put his gun away.
Yeah.
And this is the problem. I don't like guns, and I'm not like totally anti-gun. Every gun should be taken away. But the thing about guns, and I said this in the first stream, they are really cool to look at. They're really cool to touch. They're metal. They're machined. They're awesome. And it's just so easy. Like he probably is enjoying having that in his hand. But what message
It
is
has
that
it in
sending?
such a strategic spot, too, doesn't
Oh,
it?
man, that's true.
for
It's really
years.
For
cringe.
years.
Yeah.
Okay, so doesn't shock you that he was able to.
Oh, wait, that's not a
you
gun.
know it's there.
I
Oh, it's a
know
book.
there.
You know
It's a
how you-
book. All right. We've
Yeah.
got. I thought it does look like a gun from here.
Right, from that, like, because it looks like the top of the barrel, and it looks like he's
Yeah.
got his finger. Okay, yeah, it was
Officer,
a little
I
unusual.
apologize.
We
I
do.
apologize.
Sorry, it was I who introduced the suggestion, so I also
And
had my
I
apology.
bet.
I don't know if
I
I've
bet.
shot that one or not. He has a number of, I say number, it sounds a lot, but
No,
he's got a few different kinds, and honestly, I can't tell you one over the other.
Okay.
One's black, one's silver, one's big, one kicks a lot, you know.
I got you. So he has how many handguns do you say he owns?
Oh, gosh.
Oh gosh, so
I
many.
don't believe that I'll be able to give you an accurate number, but I
Fine.
think 3.
3.
Yes.
Does he own any rifles or shotguns? Okay. How many rifles or shotguns do you think he owns?
He probably has, and I don't know
Yeah, and that's
what
the
kind
best
they
of your
are.
knowledge. Yeah.
Okay, but he's probably got about 6 big
Long guns.
Long guns.
What I do want to say is the one thing I've pulled away from her is I found that I have a lot of time for her listening to her give these interviews about her fiance and how forthcoming and honest she is about everything, which has to be very difficult for her. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, she's very credible,
Yeah.
and it comes across as honest, open, forthright, which
Yeah.
you know he does not. So when you
No,
see
he
him
comes
in-
across as an
Right.
absolutely insufferable ass.
right.
Long guns. Okay.
One
Yep.
of them is mine.
And by the way, Andrew's going to be stepping out in a bit. Andrew, you got to get going here shortly.
Yes, I do, but you can continue this live. And I do like this kind of thing, and so I will. I'm sure be joining in on this project on one level or another as we go forward. This is fascinating. I could sit here and do this all night. Just that I left my kid in the other room without any other supervision.
Why don't we wrap up this for tonight, because an extra 5 or 10 minutes isn't going to do me any good. So where we're going to leave it right now is I'm just going to leave it pause where we're at. And for everybody who's watching this, we are going to be doing this more. I really enjoy doing this. And the one thing I've taken away, and this is what I was saying to you, Dixon, I see a lot of these true crime things where they talk about the interrogation, they talk about whether he's guilty or not. But I've always wanted to find like a podcast where they actually dig in and try to talk about the psychology of how it happened. Or, one of the things I spoke about was, is this a good example of why, concealed carry laws aren't necessarily the best thing? I'm not giving a judgment. I'm just asking the question. So this is the direction I want to continue. And for everybody watching, we will be doing more of these, maybe 3, 4, 5 times a week, sometimes 1 or 2, sometimes just me, sometimes the 2 of us, sometimes just Andrew. So if there's any cases you do want us to review, let us know and we can put that on our list. For anybody watching, this is our first time on Twitch, and I have gray hair, and I didn't, I'm an old guy, so I thought it was only for video games, but what the fuck? I put it on there. We're on YouTube and Facebook Live, so if anybody would like to, and please do subscribe. And thank you so much, Andrew. Have a good night, and we'll catch up with everybody soon.
Yeah, good evening.
Take care. And broadcast like an old